Hello, Spectrum Women. It is I, Becca Lory Hector, here with your next installment of Asking Spectrum Women. Happy May, you guys. It is officially May 1st, which means it is officially time for the May Asking Spectrum Women, you guys. What a crazy April. Just an odd April. Really odd. But I'm excited that a bunch of you are starting to really look forward to the Asking Spectrum Women segments and starting to wait for them and actually sending in your questions. I was overloaded with questions this month. I am so excited to say that. It is so thrilling to me that you guys are enjoying what I'm doing enough to trust me with your questions. And I appreciate that so very much. So I am going to do my best to get through all the questions. I have a good 6 of them from this month. Some of them are shorter answers than others, so hopefully it'll even out a little bit and we can kind of get through all of them. If I ever don't get through all of the questions, or I have ones that were really good and not repeats or anything, I always save them for the next month just in case I come up short on questions. But I think I'm also going to start answering some of your questions on my live stream, which is on Tuesdays at 2:20 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on my YouTube channel, which is Becca Lory. Becca Lory, I think it is Becca Lory CAS or something like that. Becca Lory Hector, look me up on YouTube. You'll find my channel. And on Tuesdays, I do a support group type live stream for about 20 minutes in the afternoon. And I will take your questions in there as well. I'll be talking, I usually choose the subject and talk about a subject in there, but sometimes your questions are on a topic that I can talk about. So if I don't get to them here, rather than making you guys wait all the way for the next month, I might start sticking some into my live stream so you guys can have some answers there. So sign up for my YouTube channel, head over and subscribe so that you can also catch the live stream if you like getting my advice and answers to your questions. But today I am going to do my very best to get to all of your May questions and try to get through them all because there were really good ones. Like really good. Super juicy. That's what I call them. When somebody sends me a juicy question, to me that means it has lots of information with the answer. A really good educational question for not just the person asking it, but also those of you who are watching the answers to their questions, right? And so I really love those juicy questions. So I got a couple of those this week, and then just this month rather, and some that are just a little bit more simple to answer. So let's get on. So we're going to start ourselves off with a quickie question about makeup. Wanting to know if other people struggle with keeping makeup on their face because of the way it feels. And so yes, the answer to that question is yes. We all struggle with it. Some of us more than others. Why? Because of our sensory sensitivity. Some of us are, of course, more sensory sensitive with touch than others. And so for us, the makeup situation is tough to deal with, right? I don't know to this day. Like I even struggle with stuff on my lips. That's the one I struggle with the most. So at most I do this, right? There's like some clear gloss or chapstick or something, but I'm not a lipstick wearer. I don't get it. I talk a lot with my mouth. I eat often. I don't know. I don't like the way it feels on my mouth. So that's my personal struggle. I know a lot of people struggle with foundation on their face. I also don't like that, so I don't do it. But I know people who can't stand the feeling of mascara on their eyelashes or, don't like how it hurts to tweeze your eyebrows, and so they don't do that. But the answer to that is yes, we all have different sensory struggles with different kinds of, what is this word? Fabrics, I guess. And just, it depends on how sensitive you are to touch. Right? And so I say, not unusual, not for us. If it makes you uncomfortable, stop doing it. You're doing it for everybody else's comfort and not your own. So you really don't need to wear makeup unless you want to wear makeup, especially these days with the natural look is so in. Why do we have to care? It's about time, right? It's not the 80s anymore where everyone needed to have on so much makeup. And so really, I hope that you can find a way to feel less pressure about wearing makeup because I don't think you should have to be uncomfortable. And I think, especially as an autistic woman, you shouldn't have to force yourself to kind of put up with a sensory overwhelm of makeup for no reason at all. So that's my answer. It's a quickie one, not too long, quickie question. But that's how I feel about it. But most definitely, you are not alone in the makeup situation. Okay, moving along. Okay, this was a very, very long question. It was it was explained a lot in the questions. It was very wordy. So I don't want to read you guys the whole thing because it'll take a long time. But basically, what the person is asking about is basically autistic inertia. Like, what happens to this person is that when they're either working on something that they like. So in this example, it's a creative project of some kind or another. And then life comes in and kind of derails you from this project. And then you go through a whole process with this thing. So life comes in, it derails you from it. So there you are, you're motivated to do this thing and you're all ready and excited. Life swoops in and it takes you off track. And then you sort of, she describes going through a process of kind of demotivation where you're no longer motivated to do the thing, you're not excited about it anymore, it starts to feel like a burden, and then it continues to go on. And so what this person continues to talk about is that it was something that became a habit as they were raising their children, because if the children came up, of course they come first and your thing goes to the side, right? But what she's having now is a continuation of that habit in adulthood. While the children are gone, she's continuing to take things off of her plate for other people and about things that aren't necessarily as important as her kids, or that she cares about as much as her kids. So what she wants to know is if it's part of being autistic, if there's something she can do about it, and if it's just a habit that she needs to break. And so what I say is it's manyfold. So as autistics, I think we always feel the burden of making other people happy. I think it's especially those of us that are adults that were brought up in the world as it's been, and those of us that were diagnosed late in life. I think we struggle with being people pleasers, because when people are happy with us, they don't bother us about the things that are weird, and we want people to like us because we're weird and all the weird, right? And so we do a lot of bending and shaping of ourselves for other people's comfort and other people's needs so that they like us. And what that means is that we don't like ourselves. We never develop a love of ourselves and an understanding that our needs are as valuable as the other person's needs. They're as valid as the other person's needs. And therefore, because we put ourselves at the bottom, we create this, habit of putting other people first. So what I want to say to you is some of it is, because you are autistic and we are those people pleasers and we like to make people happy. And the other part of it is that it's now a working coping mechanism, right? It's something that has helped you cope all of this time with managing things, right? And suddenly you don't want to be using this coping mechanism anymore. So in order to not use that coping mechanism anymore, you have to kind of go through a very conscious process. So you need a replacement for that coping mechanism. So you either need a healthier one or one that you like better, or a plan or strategy, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't have to be called a coping mechanism, right? It's your plan or your strategy for handling those situations. You need to create one, right? And you need to start practicing it. And with practice, you will create a new habit. So that's what you're going to want to try to do to tackle this. You want to think of it as a habit because you're going to use the same techniques as you would to break a habit. So you're going to create a new habit. You're going to be mindful and conscious about when you do it. You will make mistakes and you will back out of it a couple of times. And that's okay. It's an old habit. So don't beat yourself up for falling into the old habit. Instead, say, oh, I fell into the old habit, and correct yourself the next time. That's really how you rebuild a habit. In terms of how to recreate a new habit for this particular situation, I would really consider working on your boundaries, because of course that's what this is. It's a violation of boundaries right now to you, right? When it was your kids, it wasn't a violation of your boundaries, but now that it's these other things that aren't as important to you, it's a violation of your boundaries. It's crossing a boundary for you. And so what I need you to do is reprioritize. Think about the people or the things that are derailing you from what it is that whatever creative project you're working on. and decide very consciously. And if you have to write it down on a piece of paper and keep it up by your desk or whatever you do, do it. But decide what are the circumstances that it's okay for you to be interrupted from a creative task and what are not. What is that boundary? Because first you have to decide what that line is in order to know when it's being crossed, right? So decide that line, decide how you're going to handle a crossing of that line. So what are some things you could say to people who might be interrupting you or taking you off task? It's okay to say things like, you know what, I want to help you. I really do. I'm currently too busy, or I'm in the middle of this thing. But when I'm finished with A, I can give you some of my time and help you with your problem. I'm happy to do that, right? And if you can't wait for that time to come, please go ask for somebody else's help, because at this moment, I'm occupied. And it means putting yourself first and being okay with putting you first, which I think is part of that autism struggle, right? So you can see how it mushes together to create this situation. And it's going to take a conscious effort, a mindful effort on your part to rebuild this new habit. And that's kind of how I would tackle it. If you need more specific information, or if you want more details, or you want to work with me specifically on it, just shoot me an email at info@beccalory.com, and we can talk about it in more detail. But that's basically my summation of the question and how I would handle it. But good on you for recognizing that you are doing an old habit and that you don't like it anymore, because that's part of it, right? Part of breaking the habit is acknowledging that it's a habit and you don't like it. So kudos to you for that. Okay, moving on. What are some good ways to disclose to friends or acquaintances? Whew. Okay, so this one can be a struggle. It can, because everybody reacts in a different way. So what I first want to talk about when I talk about disclosure to anybody is to really think about who it is you're choosing to disclose. And then I want you to think about what their worst possible reaction could be to your disclosure. Like what would be the worst one for you to hear, right? Think about what that is and know that it's a possibility. And if you're okay with hearing that for real, hearing that response for real, I would go ahead and disclose, because you can't control how the other person is going to respond to your disclosure. So you have to be really secure in how you're feeling about it, and how your confidence in it before you go ahead and disclose to anybody. And so that's just my general rule about disclosure. If you've gotten yourself past that stuff and you're like, whatever it is that this person says back to me, it won't matter, it won't hurt my feelings, I'm okay with whatever it is that they say back. I always say, do it in person, first of all, and also come informed, come educated with the information that you want to share. So if you can bring with you a book or an article, or even just a link to a website that you'd like them to look at, some way for you to proactively help them to educate, right? To learn, because all the bias comes from misnomers, from stigma, from stereotypes, from misinformation, from old information. And so you want to come informed and ready to share the information with somebody, because they're going to want to know more. Chances are, if they really care about you and it's someone that you're disclosing to for the right reasons, that they're going to want to make life more comfortable for you, and they're going to want to learn more about it and how it might affect you. So what I talk about when I first disclose with people is, I talk about the fact that I see the world differently, and I filter the world differently, the information, and that's because I have different connections in my brain that made their way this way, and my brain is an autistic brain. And that means I process information in the world differently. And then I go on to be very specific about my particular challenges, because here's the thing. They don't need to know, these people don't necessarily need to know everything about autism right away. Maybe later they'll want to know more. But what they need to know is how to interact with you. That's what they're really wanting to know. Not about autism itself, but they want to know how this affects their relationship with you specifically. So when I disclose, I also make sure I'm ready to share the ways in which I am challenged most by my autism, the ways in which it makes it difficult or challenging for me to communicate or hang out with or spend time with those people, because that's what they want to know. We want to know, how can we hang out together anyway? Or how can I make it easier for you? Or how can I make it better for you, right? And that's the hope of a positive response. So go in prepared for a positive response, but you also want to know there's the possibility of a poor response, and that you need to be comfortable and secure enough with yourself and how you feel about your autism, so that you don't take on how other people feel about your autism, if that makes sense. So that's my advice on disclosure. If you need more advice or further instruction, again, please feel free to email me at info@beccalory.com. It may take me a bit to answer you, but I promise I respond to almost everything, and I will get to your question eventually. Okay, moving along. Next, I feel like I'm moving at a good pace, you guys, and I'm getting the questions in there. It feels good. Okay, next question. So how do you quickly recover from burnout, or better yet, how to prevent going into the red zone? Okay, there are different levels of this question. So let's first deal with, how do you quickly recover from burnout? You don't. That's why so many of us hate burnout so much. We hate falling into it. We hate burnout sucks. It really sucks. And so before burnout for many of us comes shut down, which is the beginning of that red zone. So I'm going to talk about both of those things. Is there a quick recovery from burnout? No, I don't think so. I don't think there's a quickie method to do it, because we don't get there quickly, right? You don't get to burnout place in any kind of quick pace. You don't jump off a cliff and you're in burnout, right? It happens over an extended period of time. So likewise, it takes an extended period of time for you to heal from it. I consider burnout a trauma. I don't know how else to describe it. So every time I have been in a burnout phase, it has felt like, and I have dealt with it emotionally like a trauma. So the fear of having another one lives in my brain because of that trauma. So I consider it a very traumatic event for autistics to fall into a burnout. It means we can't do anything. We just can't do anything else. That's it. We need the world to take. We're done. We're cooked. And I don't wish anyone to going there. I will tell you the best way to recover from burnout is to treat it like it's a trauma and to allow yourself the proper healing time. Meaning, be kind to yourself as you're healing. Be soft on yourself as you're healing. It doesn't happen fast, so don't rush it. And don't layer too many things on yourself. The recovery for burnout starts in here. And we feel the burnout physically all over, but the recovery process begins here. I pushed myself too hard. I went too far. What were the mistakes that I made? Where did I make them? How do I not repeat them? And how do I get back up? How do I use my resilience to get back up now? And you slowly get back up, right? If you, if you pass out for some reason, right? Nobody says, hurry up, jump back up. Everyone says, get up slowly. Do you want to sit in a chair for a minute? Do you need some water, right? So that's the behavior you want to be treating yourself with while you're in burnout. And that could be for months. I want to be honest, some of us sit in it for years, some of us for months, but burnout is not a quick thing to get into, and it's not a quick thing to get out of. So the best way to really move through it is to properly allow yourself to heal. So you need to heal your physical body, you need to start eating right and sleeping right, getting some exercise, getting some sunshine and fresh air, right? And take care of your physical body. And you also need to be taking care of your mental state, right? So adding in some yoga, maybe some meditation, going back to your special interests and giving them some time, because that we find very recharging. If you're someone who recharges alone, spending a good chunk of time alone and not demanding a lot of social from yourself, just doing what you need and nothing beyond. And you do that for a while, and you will naturally start to take on more things as you're healing. But if you try to rush taking on those things, you backtrack yourself in the burnout. So what you want to do is not rush the process, but you do want to walk through it very actively and consciously and mindfully. There is no quick recovery for burnout. That's my answer to that question. At least none that I know of. If you find one, hey, we could all use it. And then the other half of the question is how to prevent going into the red zone. Well, the prevention of the red zone situation comes from your healing from the burnout situation. So as you're processing through what mistakes you made, where you did too much, what was it that was the too much, what was it that you were struggling with, where did the overwhelm come from, right? And you make those changes and adjustments to your life, and you learn from the burnout so that you avoid the red zone the next time. And the other thing, part of that is figuring out how many spoons certain activities take for you, and deciding how much to do in a day is enough for you, and not to base those choices on other people, but to base it on your past experience of you and what it's been like for you. So you need to learn from those burnout phases to avoid the red zone. You want to make sure that you're looking for your triggers that you're near the red zone. So if you're feeling like you need to shut down, or you're feeling like you are running a race that you'll never finish and you can never catch up to the person in front of you either, chances are you're on your way to shut down and burnout, right? If you're cranky and irritable and you're not eating and you can't sleep and you don't feel well, chances are you're on your way to shut down and then burnout. So you want to be looking for your triggers, because the way and your triggers, right? The way that your body and brain express that exhaustion, because that's really what I think shutdown and burnout are extreme versions of stress and exhaustion. So when you start to feel that exhaustion, giving yourself a day off, right? Responding in that moment to that feeling and saying, I need a day off tomorrow, because if I do this for 3 more days, I might be in shutdown. And if I do it for 6 more days, I might push myself to burnout. So instead of missing months because I've pushed myself to burnout, just going to take off 1 day and give myself that brain rest that I need and the physical rest that I need. That's the trick to keeping yourself out of the red zone. It's being mindful about how you feel in the present so that you don't ignore your warning signs. That is my advice. All right. Did I make it? Is this? Oh no, I have so many more. Okay, you guys. This is the last one I think I'm going to do, because it's short. I can answer it rather short, and then I can tackle the next 2 next month, because they are very, very juicy. And we're already at 22 minutes. Who wants to listen past that? Okay, so let me do this one last question, and I will save the other 2 for next month. Or they're actually, both people come regularly to the live stream. So if you guys, Carrie, Joe, I'm talking to you guys. If you guys, you sent me your questions. If I didn't get to it today in this video, so I will tackle them in live stream. And then if you want me to, I can also hold them for June, for the June Asking Spectrum Women. So chat with me, send me an email, whatever you want to do. But let me answer this one shorter question first. Okay. Can you please talk about alexithymia and how it affects you? Is it difficult knowing if you are sad, angry, etc., or is it more of a difficulty putting the emotions into words, or both? Thanks. My answer is both. I struggle with both. So alexithymia, for those of you who don't know, is part of an interoception problem that autistics have. So interoception is your communication between your brain and your body. Right? It's that interoception system. And alexithymia is a disturbance in your ability to recognize and name your emotions. That's what alexithymia is. And many of us on the autism spectrum struggle with it, and I happen to be one of them. So alexithymia for me is an experience of delayed response. So a lot of times I have a delayed emotional response to a situation, or people say I have an inappropriate response to a situation. I get that a lot because maybe it's a situation I should be sad in, and I don't cry in the moment. I don't have sadness in the moment because of the alexithymia. And so later on, somewhere unrelated to this thing, the emotion will eventually catch up to me, and it often feels like, why am I crying out of nowhere? Where did this come? Why? Right? And that's usually the emotion from before catching up. It's sort of a delayed reaction. At least that's my experience. And the other part of the alexithymia is identifying your emotions. So often I feel, ugh, okay? Like that's what I'll do. I feel, and I make a noise because I can't pick out the word to describe the emotion that I'm feeling. I can't match them, especially if it's a really mild form of something. So if I get frustrated by something, I have a hard time recognizing frustration, but I recognize anger right away, right? Because anger is big and giant and I experience it all the time. So the ones that are more common for me to experience, like anger, right? I recognize very easily because I've had a lot of experience looking for my triggers of them. Other things I don't necessarily know. So I'm always looking for my triggers and I'm looking for those things, or I'm looking for a way that my body responds or reacts that can be the reminder that that's what happiness is, or that's what anger is, or that's what love is, or that's what frustration is, or that kind of thing. So I have to create a system for myself to recognize it in my own self. And I have to do that because otherwise I struggle. And I struggle a lot in my relationships because of that. So I've been working with my alexithymia for some time now, and I'm getting used to it, but it's not an easy thing. So I have both experiences. I'd be curious how you experience it. I'd be curious how other people experience their alexithymia, and if it's just that they can't recognize them, do they not feel them, can they not identify them? I'm curious what your experience is, because of course I only have my own. So those are my thoughts on alexithymia. But please feel free to info@beccalory.com. Shoot me an email. Let me know what your experiences are on alexithymia. And if you have some different experiences than me, I'd be curious to know, so I can share it with other people. Yeah, so I'm going to end it there. I'm at a solid 26 minutes now of answering questions for you guys. I'm going to leave those other two for next month. And you guys can always send me them in between. If you now, as you're watching the May video, suddenly have a question, please feel free to send it to me right now for June. I hang on to them. You can comment wherever you're watching this video. You can email me at info@beccalory.com your question. Get it to me whatever way you can, and I hang on to them. So if you right now are thinking of your June question, don't lose it. Send it my way. I will gladly hang on to it until next month. I hope you guys had an amazing April. I hope you will have an amazing, amazing May. Reach out to me if you want to. Comment wherever you see this video. Share this video with other people. I'd appreciate that, of course. And have an amazing May. I can't wait to see you guys in June. I can't wait to see what questions you guys send me. They're getting better every month, so I'm stoked. Have a great May, Spectrum Women. It is I, Becca Lory Hector, saying goodbye for now from Asking Spectrum Women, and I will see you on Friday in my channel for Neurodiversity Newsstand, on Tuesdays for my live stream on my channel, and then of course I will see you next month right here on the Spectrum Women channel with the June installment of Asking Spectrum Women. Have a good one, you guys. I'll see you next month.